It's showtime. Welcome to the Grandma's Wealth Wisdom YouTube channel, aka Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast. Joining me today is Dr. Deborah. She's an amazing woman. I know you all are going to love. Be sure as you're watching the video that you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, the comments are open, ready for you to ask a question, give us feedback, participate in the conversation. Okay? Without further ado, I do want to introduce Dr. Deborah, invite her to tell us a little bit more about herself. Her full bio's below the video if you want to check that out. But tell us, what are some, take us back to your childhood. We're going to get through your story, right? But take us back to some of those earliest memories about money. What was that like growing up?
Yes. So thank you. Thank you, first of all, Amanda, for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
This is really a great opportunity, and I'm already enjoying it. So I grew up in the Midwest on a dairy farm. I was the middle kid of 5 kids. And what I remember about money was my dad used to throw all his receipts in a shoebox next to the radio, and then he'd do his taxes with lots of swearing at the end of the year. That's one of the biggest things I remember. But I also remember that my mom was mostly in the home and raising the kids, helping on the farm. It just as all farm people do. We all helped, had chores to do and so forth. It was a great life. But she didn't have her own money. So she did eventually have chickens, and then she had what we called egg money. So she would sell the eggs.
Yeah.
And later on, when we were a little older and more independent, she got some jobs. So she had her own money, and I remember she'd go in and get her hair done. But one of the things that I remembered about that was the power disparity in the relationship, because she didn't have her own money. And I swore that I would never be like that and that I would learn about money. But I didn't learn about money very much from my family. And then as I was growing up, I had intensive schooling for my medical degree, and my surgery training was pretty intense. And there's not a lot of time, just like for most people that are busy with their jobs and raising small children and so forth. There wasn't a lot of time to spend on other things, but I did make time to learn about money. And so I spent as much time trying to get answers from people and trying to learn. And then the internet came along and that made things a lot easier. So the problem there was that there was a lot of information, but you didn't know what was good information.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's still the problem. So part of what I do with my sort of second act here with Money Loves Women, because it was pretty challenging for me to learn a lot of things. I didn't have people around me who knew them. It is to make things much more easy for women, because we are very, very busy. We still manage 80% of the household most of the time, most women. So we have jobs and we're raising children. We're trying to do a really good job with all of those things. And it's hard to find the time to learn about money. So, and just wealth in general, whether that's your relationship wealth, your vocational wealth, your time, money, location, freedom wealth, or your health wealth. So it's the balance for me. To live an extraordinary life, the balance is the really most challenging thing, I think.
Yeah. And I love the name of your podcast, Money Loves Women. Such a great name for a show. And I love the kind of where that comes from, seeing that your mom did what she could and that you chose a different path, and you want to see women be able to find financial literacy support from someone that's trustworthy. There's not a lot of women out there talking about money. Like 20% of CFPs are women, right? So it's hard to find those voices. So thank you for bringing that voice. If there were a few things that you wanted to make sure women understood about what money could do for them, or how they could build wealth, what are some of those things that come to mind that you're like, these are core to what you believe and what you found in your life?
Yes, that's such an important question, Amanda. Thank you for asking that. I like to think of your wealth life as a big boat that's sitting in the water. And the part of the hull of the boat that's above water is your conscious mind. the things that you think you have control of every day. But what's underwater is your subconscious mind. And that's down where the rudder is, and that's actually what's running, what's sailing the boat. And you better be standing at the rudder and not down in the hole to sleep.
Mm.
I mean, you're going to run on the rocks. And that's what people who have no financial training and aren't learning the steps of wealth building or giving themselves permission or somehow have stories about, paradigms about wealth building that are negative. Um, I, to me, that's like being asleep in the hole. So you could run up on the rocks and really get into trouble. You also don't help anybody by not growing wealth. So when I hear about people who think that's a bad thing to have money, I ask them, to focus on growing wealth. I ask them if they're healthy or do they feel like someone else is less healthy.
Mm.
And usually they say, well, no. And it's the same thing with money.
I
Yeah.
love that. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna repeat that. I'll give you credit for sure. If you're if you're healthy, does that mean anyone else is less healthy? And especially as women, as we raise up like our health, whether, and our wealth, whether, physical health or our monetary wealth, we're going to bring a lot of people with us. Our children would be healthier because they're probably eating healthier food. We're able to teach them what we learn about money, and our sisters and yeah, wow. Thank you so much. I love that.
When women when women learn about money, as you pointed out, they spread that information around, just like you pointed to. And I think it behooves us to make sure that our children know about money. They're not always real open to hearing it.
Hmm.
It's true, but when you can create openings, it's really good. And to start some practices in your family
Yeah.
is really helpful. So if you teach your children to save, I love this. Adam Carroll is a guy I interviewed on my podcast, and he makes his children take part of their allowance, and they have jobs they have to do, and it's not a choice. They have to
Right.
do those jobs.
Yeah.
But
Just part
otherwise,
of the family. Yeah.
or his brother would pay his sister. I mean, his son would pay his sister to clean the toilets, but no, that's not how it works. So he has his kids build up an emergency fund. And what emergency are they going to have that he's not going to cover? I mean, none. But he said it's really great practice for them to build up their emergency fund, and I
Yeah.
think that is so smart.
Yeah.
So we do teach our kids. It's our business to create not just good daughters who are going to be strong out there in the future, but also good sons.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to teach our daughters that a man's not a plan.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we have independent women, and we need all women. The future is feminine. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely true. I think women are going to make the difference in the world. I think women are going to be the basis and source of solving many, many of the problems that now exist.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad when I hear young people say they don't think the problems are soluble, because I think they are. And if you don't take an optimistic stand that problems are solvable, you're not going to solve any because you already think it's not possible. Um,
Right.
but that's kind of the basic hull of the boat, if I
Mhm.
can carry that forward. And then the stacks on the boat that are the cargo that you're carrying, the very first one is making a decision for wealth. So giving yourself permission to grow wealthy. And grow some wealth first, which means that you can support yourself passively with your income and then grow rich. So when your money's working for you and kicking off enough income that you don't have to work, you can choose to work at a job if you wish for money, but you get to choose what you want to do with your time. And then if you wish, grow rich. But that's the first one's making a decision and giving yourself permission. There's not a lot of women don't want to give themselves permission to grow wealth.
Yeah.
And we need
Yeah.
to grow people wealthy one person at a time. That's
Mm.
how we get rid of income disparity,
Yeah.
by getting one person at a time out of that.
Mhm.
And the next piece is to take responsibility for your money. That means you know what you spend, you know where it goes, and you've got a plan for how it gets apportioned. And once you have that plan in place, then we want to see you develop a cash machine. Find one, if you want to grow rich. Not everybody wants to grow rich, but if you want to grow rich, find one of the 10 paths to riches. The most common being either work for a long time with a good cash flow coming in, live below your means, or at least save, and invest well. And if you don't invest, you can't take advantage of that compounding, and you're not going to have a good life when you get old enough to not work.
Mm.
So that's really important. But that's the piece. Grow your cash machine, develop a cash machine. And in order to do that, you really need to design your life. And I suggest you design it with wealth in mind. And you design it from your desires and what you would love. So really figure out what you would love. And sometimes that takes trying some things. It's an active thing sometimes. You don't have to figure it out in college. 27% of people only go into the field.
Right.
Right? You and I, medicine's pretty straightforward, right? But here I am doing Money Loves Women, and I was an artist. I'm very artistically inclined. I don't have formal art training, but now I'm doing an artistic thing in medicine.
Yeah.
So you end up with what you love, hopefully, and not
Mhm.
something you think you should do or someone else thinks you should do, which I think is the ultimate sin when you co-opt someone else's life and tell them what they should do.
Yeah. Oh, so much good, juicy stuff there. I feel like people are going to want to go back and listen to this multiple times, really like soak it in. Um, I know you've got a huge heart for women in professional roles. You're a medical professional, but this could also apply to plumbers and electricians and that kind of thing. And there's lots of women in those fields that just get forgotten, right? Or
Yes.
they're they're thought of just as what they're able to do and not who they are and not really what their potential could be. Where does that like love come from, and what kind of words do you want to speak to those women that might hear our conversation today?
Well, I have a really strong feeling for women in the trades, and unfortunately, it gets degraded. Gets looked down upon, and I don't really understand why. It's a fabulous career, including for women to be in the trades. And if you prefer to be in the trades, you can learn with someone who's in the trades, and sometimes take over their business and do very, very well for yourself if you learn these principles. Um, there's huge opportunity in the trades because not as many people are going into them. And also because there's a huge number of people retiring who have businesses, very good business in the trade in six figures easily. And those businesses are coming up for sale. So you can save yourself a college education cost, which can be huge in terms of your wealth building, and go into the trades. I had a patient who was a nursing assistant, and she just couldn't make ends meet with that job. And her dad was he had a construction company. So he teased her and he said, "Why don't you do something in construction or in the trades?" So she went to heavy equipment school, and now she's the top crane operator in Boston.
Wow.
And she's in huge demand. And
Yeah.
I think the contractors love her
Hmm.
because she shows up. She doesn't drink. She doesn't fight. And they really, really like her. And I think, women, whenever they go into some of these areas, they can do very well for themselves. And they can learn the business if they want to learn the business, to take that over, to continue to grow their wealth from owners. Express the interest and get mentored and learn how to run a business without ever having to go to business school. The biggest things you learn about business are from doing businesses anyway.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to business school, but you do have to be a good self-teacher, right?
Right.
You know
Right.
that yourself from your own experience.
Exactly. Yep.
So once you develop your cash machine and throw off excess cash flow, the whole idea behind the excess cash flow is not to make your lifestyle bigger, but to create investment cash.
Hmm.
And do some of the things that you know so well, Amanda, such as finding those really, really good whole life insurance policies where you can put your money into those and get them protected, get them and borrow against that so you don't have to deal with banks. It's a much faster turnaround. That's a great place to be thinking about. But to also be funding investments that are safe, not too risky. And the thing that makes investments risky is if you don't understand them. So you need knowledge and you need to be able to self-teach. And I know that you are a self-teacher and a reader, and so am I, and so are many achieving people.
Yeah.
But if you want to really grow your wealth, you must get yourself educated. And if you think about work in two sections, in one section there's the employed and the self-employed, And unfortunately, they pay the most taxes and have the least protection from having the money taken away from them by
Yep.
the government.
Yep.
And then on the other side, you have the business owners, and I'm talking about big business, not necessarily big business, but businesses that are maybe generating $1 million in revenue or more.
Right, and they have employees that are
So,
helping generate that revenue. It's not all on the
yes,
business
you
owner to
you
bring
are
in the
not.
money.
Yeah, hopefully you're not the producer. I'm the producer in my practice, unfortunately, in some ways, but in that level. So business owner and investor are in a different side of things. So what you want to do is, if you're in that self-employment or you're an employee, hopefully you're a high-level employee, and that fits for some people to be an employee. That works for some. They want to climb the corporate ladder or do whatever, or to be self-employed. They like that. But to kick off that cash flow and learn how you really truly run a big business, because you need that to inform your investing. So if you don't understand business, how business works, it's much harder to become a sophisticated investor. And I think lots of people don't know that. And you don't have to be constantly running a business to learn some of that. You can learn it with mentors and other people and study it. And then start investing and learning from other people around you. Get in masterminds that are investing together. There's lots of ways to do it, but that's how you really become a sophisticated investor. Whether you're investing in the stock market, if you're investing in the stock market, you need to get a mentor and learn how to do that. And there's actually ways to do that. Warren Buffett's really good at it. And he's also really good at businesses. He has some great things to say, and he has a letter every year that he does. So those are the things. And then those are the main pieces of building wealth that we teach with Money Loves Women. And then the sail on the front of the boat, I think, is the most important piece, because it carries you forward, pulls you forward. And that sail is about personal presence, and that's access to your personal power. And it is about who you're being while you're doing what you're doing. And that's an important piece to train in, because it's going to advance you as a person. The kind of wealth building I like to teach is transformational wealth building. That means the real value, the huge value that you get out of it. It's not only your financial results, but especially how you grow as a person. And so personal presence is very important. If you don't have access to your power, if you don't have self-mastery and mastery over your emotions, it's hard for your sail to get filled with the wind to pull you forward quickly. And then the sail on the back of the boat is also important, and that's how do you make your life work so you can work. And women have special challenges in that area, and are innovative, I think, in finding ways to make that all work. So those are the pieces of Money Loves Women. Mindset is a huge piece that has to go with that in terms of personal presence or in the decision for wealth. So having a growth mindset, a mindset that recognizes that process needs to be rewarded, both for yourself, to yourself, and hopefully for the people around you, because it's the process of striving that makes the difference. And if you think you can't strive because you might fail, and you have a fixed mindset about that, and your personal your self-esteem is wrapped up in that, then you can't ever take a risk, and you can't grow. So mindset's really, really important there. And then the other piece that I think is so important is working from your dream, not trying to get to your dream, but figuring out what your dream is and feeding that dream to your subconscious. Don't forget, that's the piece under the water that's going to guide you through the water, and feeding that with emotion and visualization. So your subconscious doesn't speak in words, it speaks in pictures and emotion. And to constantly embed what you would love into your subconscious mind so that you can manifest that. And people talk about manifestation, but I don't think they really always understand how it works. And it's actually a natural law. It's kind of metaphysics, but to me, it's spirituality intersecting with quantum physics. And I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but that's kind of what I think. And I think it actually works. It works, some people call it serendipity or destiny or fate. But you can you're constantly creating your life, and you're either creating it consciously, from your dream and your visualization, or you just go unconsciously. It's like drifting in the wind. And then people wonder why they're up on the rocks.
Yeah.
Set a course and have a compass.
Mm.
So that's what Money Loves Women is all about. And
Yeah.
right now I'm really concentrating a lot up in the area of cash machine and investing, because I think there's a lot of women who've sort of got the other pieces figured out or can fine tune that, going through that fairly quickly, and want to be in that area of how do I maximize my cash machine? How do I invest? And is there a way to do both at the same time? And
Yeah.
yeah, and you and I have talked a little bit about acquisition entrepreneurship. So
Yeah,
that,
I want
yeah,
to get there. So so I'm going to reflect back something. Tell me if I heard this right, because I think there's some really powerful words here that you just said that I'm going to rephrase a little bit and tell me if I understood this right. So you know how people always say like that, money makes you more of who you are. So if you're naturally, selfish, money's just going to make you more selfish. If you're naturally giving, money's just going to help you give more or whatever it might be. What I kind of heard you say is like, especially if you've gotten clear on what is your dream, you've got that growth mindset, you know who you're becoming, it makes the money about making more of that, of who you want to be, the personal development that you want to see, and that's actually probably a good buffer from just being greedy and like striving just to have more money. It's no, I'm striving to become this dream or to become this better person, and money is just a tool to help me get there.
yes,
And my Yeah, and that gets lost so much. People think money is just if they have more money, they're just going to become bad or evil or greedy. When
yeah,
it's like, no, keep your sight in the right place and it'll help you actually get there.
yeah. That's like thinking if you get more healthy, you're going to somehow be greedy. Like, oh, I'm
Right.
really greedy about getting yeah,
Right.
it's an interesting concept, but we all have emotions wrapped around money. All of us do, and we have money stories, some of which don't serve us, many of which don't serve us very well. So
Right.
if you can be aware of those and excavate those, then you can decide for yourself: does this serve me, or is this hindering me?
Mm.
And if you don't satisfy that, you can get really stuck, and you can't get over it. And if you've gotten fed lots of information about money, people who are rich are bad, people who are rich are greedy, that kind of thing. And what is rich?
Right.
But the whole, money's just a value holder, so you don't have to carry chickens around.
True. Yep.
It's just, okay, I'll, give you some chickens and get some milk. Then I
Mhm.
got to carry the milk home, or I want to trade the milk for some lumber. It gets a
Yep.
little bit cumbersome.
Yep.
So it's just a placeholder for value. And
Mhm.
you want to really create a lot of value. When you create a lot of value for other people, you get paid for it.
Yep.
Women
Yep.
sometimes have a little trouble asking for what they're worth, or they get caught up in the idea that I want to make the world a better place. And if you want
Mhm.
to make the world a better place, get wealthy, because you can do a lot of
Yes.
good with the more money you have, the more you can give,
Yep.
and the more you can do with it. That makes a big impact. So if you
Mhm.
want to make a big impact, grow your wealth. We need to create wealth one person at a time, and there's no reason why everyone can't be wealthy.
Yep.
It's not a pie.
Right.
It's
Right.
not like if I get a bigger slice, you get a smaller slice. It's just a value holder and a reflection of the creation of value for other
Mhm.
people
Yep.
that you've
Yep.
been paid for. So
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Oh, I'm loving this so much. Okay, we got to talk about entrepreneurial or acquisitional entrepreneur, buying
Yes.
our way into being entrepreneurs. So I've got to tell you, when I first heard you talk about this, I thought of a news article I maybe saw a decade ago of all of these um, older individuals, we'll just call them boomers, right? Kind of that generation, who are starting to think about selling their businesses and they couldn't find any buyers. The business landscape had changed. I remember reading about one hardware store on the East Coast. I was having a hard time figuring out how to sell their business because all these big boxes had popped up and like the business landscape had changed and didn't not as many people were shopping at hardware stores. I didn't think that was the way of the future. But then I also think of some awesome people I know, like a woman whose dad owns a painting company and she's already going into that painting company and learning from her dad so she can take it over one day and it's successful. And what I see her doing is her dad's gotten it to a certain level of success with his skills and his abilities and his values and stuff like that. Her bringing her femininity into it, she sees ways to make improvements that he would have never seen and is actually going to
Yeah.
raise that business to the next level. So I want in our minds, I want us to be thinking that way. As you start sharing some ideas around buying our way into entrepreneurship, thinking that way of like bringing our own values to like level up a business that someone else has already had success in. Is that, first of all, is that what you mean? And
Well,
then use
yes.
that as a way to then tell us, how do we do this? What do we need to
Yes,
do?
yes. So you're really right about that. So I guess to begin at the beginning, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, well, why would you do that? Why would you buy a business rather than start a business? So startups are risky, and you have to do a lot of things all at once to make something work, and many fail. So it's pretty risky. Whereas if you're going out to acquire a business, you already have customers, you already have profit, you already have revenue, you have a system for doing things. So you have a lot of things in place. And as you pointed out, now this is a really interesting thing. So there's something like $41 trillion worth of equity in small businesses that need to change hands
Yeah.
because baby boomers own them, and they're going need to either bequeath, like you're talking about, or maybe she's going to buy her dad's business or painting business, or be sold. So of the startups that we talked about, that many fail. Of the ones that don't fail, a very significant portion still don't amount to much and never hit the $1 million mark. Only 4% hit the $1 million mark. So get to a point where you've got some significant cash flow and can start to build wealth by buying
Yeah.
more businesses. So it's a really interesting concept, and I think it's a wonderful place for women to look. Now, here's the other big. Well, the boomers are selling their businesses, but the government's recognized that small business is the engine that runs our economy.
Yeah.
So now the Small Business Association, SBA, will finance you to buy a business. A startup, you've got to go get if it's going to be a big company and you're looking to try to really create something of great wealth. You have to go get venture capital. You're raising money. You're trying to do this startup. You're trying to find customers. You're beta testing. You're doing this. You're doing
Yeah.
that.
You might sign your house on the
And,
dotted line
yes,
to get a loan.
but maybe people are more familiar with real estate, the way people grow wealth in real estate. So you find your income property, you put something down, you finance the rest with the bank, you let the renters pay off your loan, and eventually you own your property free and clear, and all your rent goes to you. But you do that multiple times. You pull the equity out as the renters, as you paid down the loan, and you pull that equity out and put it into the next property, and then the next property, and that's how people grow wealth in real estate. You can actually do the same thing with a business because the SBA loans are up to 90%. Now, it's not a loan from the Small Business Administration; it's backed, guaranteed by the SBA. So if you default, they're going to, cover that. The default rate on those loans is extremely low, very low. So, you're a really good risk, and women are better risk than men, interestingly. They are more successful in business. They have a better track record. So all these businesses are coming up for sale. The government very much wants them to successfully change hands. So you have that piece. Now, the other opportunity in acquiring a small business is that it's an area that the investment groups are not all that interested in. It takes just as much paperwork and time to find a small business between maybe 1 and 10 million in revenue as it does to find one that's 100 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So it's a better investment for them to go big.
Right.
And those private equity investors, just to explain what that is a little bit, it's groups of people who are looking to invest large amounts of money, and they look for companies to buy. and then put people in place to do exactly what you talked about: innovate, grow, fresh eyes. And they typically look for a company that's got some opportunity in that area. But you can do the same thing. You can be your own little private equity group. You can go and find a business. I heard someone say one time that in any community, at any one time, 25% of the businesses are probably for sale. That doesn't mean they're listed, but they're probably for sale. But now this market, this small market, there's not that competition from the private equity groups. And it's a little bit fragmented. There's no MLS like there, and there's no like brokers that have to go through a particular test or anything. So it's fragmented market. And what that does is it keeps the prices down to acquire. So typically the value of a business like that is, let's say, right around 3 times whatever the seller's discretionary earnings are. So at that point, you can start to see that you can get into a small business, purchasing a small business with hopefully a 90% or maybe an 80% loan on that. So you're using other people's money, and then you come in, you innovate, you find ways to grow it. And then if you can grow it big enough, you can sell it at a higher multiple than what you originally started at.
Yeah.
It is not just like falling off a log to sell a business either, but because it's a fragmented market. And it probably will stay that way for a while, but there are some real opportunities there. And if you run the numbers on things like that, you find that it's like a intersection of investment and business, entrepreneurship. So those two things intersect. So you can do both at the same time. You can grow a business and have an investment type model to really cash out big if you're good at it. And the way to get good at it is to really learn about it. And it used to be there weren't very many good books. Well, there were a few. Harvard Business Review has one. But a young man named Walker Deibel wrote one, a very clear book if people are interested in that way, that pathway to wealth, which I think is so great for women, called Buy Then Build. He's recently put together an acquisition lab to teach people intensively how to do this. And the amazing thing, it's a very good price. And the amazing thing is that they carry you through your first year of search. So if it takes you, 10 months to find it, they're there to support you. And I don't think there's anything like that I've ever seen before. And I'm currently in the acquisition lab to really get my good skills to strengthen my bad ones. And I'm actually doing it with my daughter-in-law. The two of us are going to go into partnership and buy businesses together. And she has strengths where I have weaknesses. And I think we give each other confidence. So that is a fabulous path to wealth for women and to invest at the same time. Hopefully kicking off enough cash flow that you can buy another business and create that model repeatedly over years, just like people do with real estate. So that's a really, really cool piece that I found. There's obviously other ways to invest, and it's good to get in-depth training no matter where you go, and then having good advisors. And I know, Amanda, that you're a real proponent of that, and you are, in fact, a great model of that.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Thank you for taking on that role, because I think women are more likely to trust a woman advisor. Not that there's many good men advisors out there.
Right.
But anyway, that's kind of my gig.
I love it. There's so many good things there, and I'm gonna go back and listen to some of those things because I was having a lot of ideas come up. One thing that I was thinking about when you were mentioning like the SBA loans is that that's not the only route. I actually know some people who, when they have purchased the business, they developed an agreement with the seller to pay them over time rather than all at once. And they're able to pay the seller from the profits of the business and from the cash flow of the business, just like they would repay an SBA loan, right?
Absolutely. Isn't that the right way to do it?
Right. And you can negotiate terms, right? Like, and all those kind of things in a way that maybe you couldn't with the SBA or those kind of things. So it's a lot of fun to think about a lot of those different things. And there's some great, being someone that's sold a business before, one of the things I like to tell people is think about the businesses you love, that you like know about them, like you frequent them, you've seen how they've developed and that kind of thing. And then also think whatever skills you have, like if you are a plumber, buy a plumbing business, right? If you are a nurse, like buy an optician office, like, or, something like that. Like, there, if you're a dental assistant, maybe you could buy the dental practice and then now you're paying the dentist, right? And there's like those kind of dreams can actually happen. And to stay in, like you said very early in the interview, you invest where you know what's going on. The same would be true with this kind of acquisitional entrepreneurship as well.
And if I could just have a caveat to that, the very most important thing, if you're going to acquire a business or start a business or any of that, is to know who you are. So you are the biggest risk in a business. We did a really fun test in the acquisition lab called the Culture Index. And it told us where our strengths were, what kind of person we are. And it helped us to understand what kind of person we need to bring onto the business with us. Not everybody wants to be the CEO. Sometimes they want a different role. Maybe they want to be the head of sales and their passion is selling and they want someone else to manage the business and bring on a general manager. So there's lots of ways to do it. And there's as many creative ways to buy a business. People sometimes can buy businesses without using their own money. It gets a little complicated sometimes, and it's more advanced technique. And you also might not be able to get a 90% loan your first time out of the gate. But once you've proven yourself, it's more likely you'd be able to get that. So, there's if you're a creative and you like putting deals together, this is a great way to do it. And to get some mentorship in that's really great because there's all sorts of ways, just like you talked about, of doing this. Some sellers don't want to get a lump sum payment for their business because they don't want that tax event. And they'd rather get paid out over time.
Right. Yeah.
And use that as an annuity.
Yep.
Sometimes part of it will be financed by the business owner. And sometimes that's good because if they get something called an earnout, then they're motivated to make sure that your business is successful. You can see that if you're leaving a business, you might not, it's like, okay, I want to, I'm done.
Yep.
So if you can involve, if you get along with them and you can involve them in that way, so that they support you. But there's all kinds of ways to do it.
So that's also a great way to make sure they don't open the same store next door, right? And non-competes are important.
You need good legal advice. And I think one of the things you need to remember, though, that there are advisors you'll need to pay, and you don't want to skimp. So you do not want to skimp on your lawyer.
Yes.
You don't want to skimp on that.
Yep.
You want the best one you can find that fits with the level of what you're doing. So that's a really important piece. But there's books out there also. There's an attorney from Virginia that wrote a really wonderful book on what you need to pay attention to. And the more you know, the way to keep your lawyer's bills down is to learn what you need to know. So you can ask intelligent questions so they can teach you, but they don't have to spend a lot of time because they charge by time.
Right. Yep.
So if you already know what you're going to be going through, you know the cadence, the things that need to be in place. They can take care of the details, but at least and they don't have to teach you. So that's all really smart things to do, and that's true no matter what you're doing.
And one thing I want to touch on with the partnership idea is that, and like finding people that can fill in where you have more weaknesses, you're not as strong, is that actually the employees that are already in the business are super important to feel confident in them too. I know when we sold our business, partly it was because we had great employees and they knew they could continue with those folks and then bring in, new managers of them or promote one of them to management or whatever.
Yes, there's lots of options. So sometimes you have people from within that you can put into the general management place or and what some people do is buy businesses and they manage businesses. It's smart to do it so you can stack them. So you're not doing different kinds of businesses. because that gets to be a little bit chaotic. But if you can stack them, or if you can roll one business into another in a way that is really makes sense. Like if somebody has a technology that would be shareable with your business and grow your business by acquisition. So you're stacking a second business into the first one and bringing that all together.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's a great technique of bringing in new technology, for example, that maybe or new methods that you can't afford, and it also eliminates some competition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a good way to go.
Okay.
Lots of neat things to do.
Yeah. So I want everybody go keep learning about this. I want you to also subscribe to the Money Loves Women podcast to hear more from Dr. Deborah. Anything else that you think by way of continued learning, and then we'll wrap up today.
I just want to really encourage people to not get discouraged and to find people, like-minded people to be around them. Because wealth building is a stepwise process and it's doable. And by making yourself richer, you're helping to create better things in the world. Everybody around you will benefit from the ripple effect of that. And you're right, Amanda, that, wealth and money make you more of who you already are. So there's nothing evil about money. People will do evil things with money, or people will do wonderful things with money. It just depends on who they are. And we would like to see everybody be their best person, but it will grow you in whichever way you're already headed.
Yeah.
Sure.
So do that self work too to clean those cobwebs and
Two things: advance yourself, become financially literate and hopefully financially sophisticated, and learn your skills. You cannot do it without the skills, and you can also not do it without the mindset. And they're an interwoven tapestry.
Yep. Well, this has been so much fun. I totally wanted to have this conversation too for a little bit of a social or a selfish reason, because I know the average age of a financial professional in my sector of the industry is 59. And over the next decade, there's going to be a lot of them that are doing succession planning and trying to sell their books of business. And, it's in every single industry in all kinds of different ways. But I know it's even in mine as a financial professional. I imagine it's going to be in the medical profession, in all kinds of different areas, whether it's a brick and mortar shop or an e-commerce Etsy stores. People might sell those. You never know. Whatever your passion, whatever people might want to explore, there's a way to buy their way into entrepreneurship.
Oh, I love the way your mind is working, Amanda. You would be such a shoe-in for purchasing someone's practice. And what a great way to grow your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
Okay, thank you so much. This has been a fun conversation. We better wrap up before we end. Everybody go look for the Money Loves Women podcast. You'll find me on there soon too, being interviewed by Dr. Deborah.
Right.
And when you start listening, be sure you rate and review the podcast. Give her the kudos there to help grow her audience as well. Thank you so much again, Dr. Deborah. It's been such a pleasure.
Amanda, thank you so much. You asked such great questions. I really, really enjoyed it. And here's to women.
Yes, here's to women.
Yes.